I'm Ellen Wanjiru with blackfilm.com, and I have the pleasure of chatting with co-directors Arie and Chuko Esiri about their first feature film, Eyimofe, This Is My Desire. Hi, gentlemen.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So I understand, Arie, you're in New York. Chuko, you're in Lagos. Is that right?
Yes.
Wow,
Perfect.
that's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's so many things I loved about this film. I think it's a bit of a game changer in terms of how daily life is presented compared to what's mostly expected from Nigerian cinema, which is exactly what makes this film so incredibly special, in my humble opinion. So I wanted to know, I was curious, what informed the decision to create Eyimofe outside of the Nollywood machine? And Chuko, we can start with you.
Well, we've always wanted to make films like this. Arie will tell you about the time that that I showed him Victoria De Sica's Bicycle Thieves, and it was a transformative moment for him. So Arie, you're welcome. But no, but likewise, he also introduced me to the films of Ho Xiao Shen and Taiwanese cinema, and all of it was just incredibly inspiring, and it's just what we wanted to do. Nollywood, I see Nollywood as a genre rather than an industry. So for us, it was about adding another strain to what already is the Nigerian film industry. I mean, there are substantive films made in the Hausa language, in Yoruba language, in Igbo language. So it was really that in terms of why outside the Nollywood machine. But it's also, I get a lot of my references and my influence from literature. I always joke that if I had talent, I'd be a novelist, but here I am. So one of my favorite authors is James Joyce, and Dublin is one of my favorite books, and it's a collection of short stories, 12 short stories take place in the city of Dublin, and it just really captures the people and the city, and it's just I think of the joy of the mundane and just the beauty of the quotidian, and for me in writing the film and for us making it, it was trying to capture that. There are 22 million people in this city, and Nigeria is more than the sum of the only expression we've had really is through news media and through Nollywood films, and frankly that's quite together it's a limited view of such a large, diverse culture and people. So it was just really just trying to add another strand to it, sincerely.
Gotcha. Arie, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, that was beautifully put. Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that you said, this is the first time I'm hearing it, that Nollywood is more so of a genre. I never looked at it that way. So that kind of changes now my entire perception of that. So thank you. What inspired this incredible film? I know that you wrote the screenplay, Chuko. And so what inspired the actual story?
I say the kernel of it came about 9 years ago now, when I was first moving back to Nigeria from having spent time away at your boarding school in England. At the time I was working in New York, and even though we were always in and out because our family's here, our parents are here, our homes are here, for a very long we weren't physically, well, I wasn't physically engaged with the place. And my first instinct, having come back, was wanted to go somewhere, wanted to return, wanted to go back to where it was easier, where it was familiar. And the longer I spent at home, the more I reconnected, the more I sort of grew back into being a Nigerian. That's where the idea and the story of wanting to leave came about, and it's something that's still true today. They did a poll the other day, and the Nigerian dream is to leave. And a lot of that is a function of the dysfunction that exists as a result of poor governance, and the line that continues on and on and on and on. So I think every creative in one way or another is engaging with their society, and that's where it came from.
And so, Arie, was it an obvious decision that you would both collaborate to bring this into production?
Yes, I suppose so. I think Chuko and I were very deliberate about our decision to go to film school at the same time and in the same city, but in different schools, to be able to tap into different networks and work on our various weaknesses and eventually collaborate. And we'd already made a couple of short films together. So yeah, this has been in the works, and it's been part of the plan for a good long while now. So yeah, it made total sense to tackle this together.
I'm really glad that the twin powers activated on this project, because I mean I can't wax poetic enough about this film. And so let's sort of segue into characters in this cast. My God, your two lead characters, Mofe and Rosa, Jude and Temi. How did they come about? How did you find them? Why did you pick them? They were incredible. Arie.
Well, Jude is a pretty established theatre actor in the UK, that I had seen in a play several years ago. I'd actually seen him in two plays at that point. And I had always wanted to work with him. I mean, I wasn't even really making movies, but I knew I wanted to make movies, and I knew that one day I'd love to make a film with him. And he made such an impression on me in the stage plays I'd seen him in. I can't remember which iteration of the draft we were reading, but Mofe was actually written younger than he ended up being. And I don't know, maybe like the seventh draft out of the 13 or something. So about halfway, I just said to Chuko that I felt that the character could and should actually be aged up, and that Jude Akudike would be like the perfect Mofe. And so yeah, we said we through Sheyi, the guy Tommy Waidu, who plays Sheyi in the film. He's a friend of Jude. We sent him the script, and it got to Jude, and he ended up coming to Nigeria. But he spent about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks with him before we went into production, just getting him reacquainted with the space. He hadn't been back to Nigeria since, in a real way, since he was about 6 years old. He left because of the war with his family, our civil war in the 70s. And getting him reacquainted with the space, meeting the real electricians, going to eat in the markets of Balande, some of the places that the character visits and we visited in the film. Obviously, we just sort of like got him immersed into the day-to-day rhythms of life back home. And Chuko can maybe talk a bit about how we came across Temi, which was quite interesting as well.
Yes, do share.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, he was like draft number 5 when Arie said Jude should do it. We were in my father's place in the village, and what Arie does is he reads the script back to me. We were sort of halfway through reading it to me, and he goes, "Oh, who should play this? We should take him up, and it should be Jude." That's how that came about.
Wow.
But with Temi, I had seen, so Temi's an identical twin, and I had seen her sister in a play about 3 years prior to the film, at Lagos Theatre Week. It was the University of Lagos Drama Club put on a play, and it was called Sad Pink, about breast cancer and domestic violence. But she was great. I thought she was wonderful in it, and I marked her name down on the program. At that time, I was watching a lot of plays and watching a lot of Nigerian films and TV, and just marking names down of people I thought I'd like to work with. And then 3 years later, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, am I actually going to find this woman? I'm going to have to go to the University of Lagos and hope that they have a contact detail And archiving and data collection it's not a thing we excel at over here. So I was like, oh, that's such a pity. And so we were going to get something. We're driving somewhere, and she was working as an assistant for an artist, and they were having a screening. They were screening this documentary at this place, and we were trying to attend the screening actually, but we came late so we couldn't go in. And she was doing the door, and I was like, to Lou Abby Williams, she was like, yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I saw you in the play. We're going to start auditioning for this film in a few months. I would love you to come along and exchange details. And I said, I'd send you the information. And then the auditions came, and she brought her twin sister, Temi, who was still at University of Lagos, and Temi ended up winning the role. I mean, we went to a lot of people, and those two were among the final 3 or 4, and Temi ended up getting the role. But yeah, so the film got smiling.
Yeah, it was meant to be. Was the original plan to have 2 protagonists? Was that the original plan to have 2 protagonists? Okay.
But it's so Rosa's character grew out of more personal decision. It was initially it was very much Mofe's story, and Rosa was more of a supporting character. And then my last year at film school was the first year that they did the Gina Davis Institute report on gender representation in film, and I was really disappointed to discover that at the time that I was making a lot of the mistakes that male writers make when it comes to female characters. And so I just went back home and went into it and started thinking more about it, more substantively about the character, and trying to say things about Nigeria, fitting into the themes, and just ended up growing and growing and growing. And so that's how Italy that's how she got her own chapter. So it was really just completely, again, just more fortuitous, and just trying to challenge myself to be a better writer.
Nice. And so one of the things I love about Mofe and Rose's character is, while their experiences and their journeys are different, the underlying desire for more is so relatable in so many different levels. I mean, myself as an immigrant from Nairobi, I connected to this film in such a very different way. But even if I wasn't, I would still connect to this. And I think that's what makes this film so unique, especially when you're telling migrant stories. And I'm glad that you guys had the power to write and direct your own stories, right? Because I think it helps people look at the world differently when you have power telling your own stories. So thank you for that. So there were so many, little things that stood out to me, starting with the sisters, right? Grace, Rose's sister, and of course Mofe's sister, and how they were sort of the driving factors to them being able to go overseas. What brought on that decision to make that the sisters sort of the catalysts?
I think I can just say briefly to the point that you were making. I think that the theme of migration is truly universal. Like you said, being from Nairobi and migrating to the States is the same as an AFI student that emailed me to say that he found something in the film because he was moving to Europe to start university, and it's been very heartwarming to see how the film has touched people from all walks of life. And I think also very quickly to your point, we were trying to change the landscape of migrant films and make films about the actual people, and not so much about the perilous journeys that they have to undertake to get to some of these destinations. And we're very lucky to have financiers that were allowed us to be uncompromising in our vision. I would say with I would say with regards to the sisters, obviously Chuko wrote it, but I read every single draft, was heavily involved in its development. But I think that touches on the other universal theme of family. I think at its core, this film really is about family and what you are willing to do to better yourself and the ones that you love. And I think that it was important to sort of make the world as extensive as possible, or to expand the world as much as we could. But Chuko, you can also fill in the gaps, because I know we also, at one stage, they were living in different places. They were sort of like right next to each other, neighbors. But I think this is all part of opening up the film a bit and getting to experience, make life feel as full as possible on screen.
Chuko, anything to add to that?
I mean, no, not really. I mean, he's completely right. I think especially in this part of the world, the driving force is wanting to provide for your family. We're all, as human beings, communal, but I think here the way in which the culture is more communal. Right down to the often trotted out proverb of "it takes a village to raise a child." That's an African proverb, but it's so you see them they live together in these small spaces, 4 or 5 people in a house, oftentimes 3 generations in the same home. It's very, very common experience. And so when you're sort of in a position to provide or wanting to provide, it's never really for you. It's family. It's for the family. And there's a more nefarious extension of it in what's known as black tax. But it really all finds its roots in what is still a very communal culture of your community, your village, your ward. So yeah, I just felt it was natural. It wasn't really a conscious decision. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, it warmed my heart when Grace and Mofe cross paths in the scene where Mofe is not fixing the TV, but their TV is there and Mofe is there to fix it. Because I was curious why Mofe and Rosa, their paths didn't connect. But you chose for Grace and Mofe to have that special moment. Can you talk a bit about that decision, Chuko? Because it brought tears.
Well, in the draft, Rosa and Mofe do share more scenes, but Mofe very much has a relationship with Grace, and a lot of it stemmed from, I imagined Mofe being the character man he is, the sort of fixer nurturer type, that he would be more drawn to the younger sister, who's sort of just getting through life, and he's lost his nephews, and I sort of felt like he has this the character felt like a surrogate father type, but it's just that Rosa's out working, she's got 2 jobs. Grace is hanging around the neighborhood and sometimes leads to good or bad things, and Mofe I felt he would absolutely feel responsible for this young girl who's around, and having been a sort of parent in his own way with his nephews. I feel he's better with younger people and children than more like older people or his contemporaries. I feel he's that sort of chap.
Agreed. I appreciate that scene felt very natural. There was nothing contrived about their paths coming together. And I think that's what drew me to that scene. Arie, I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
Oh no, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because someone wrote something on Instagram, having seen it, and and he wrote this paragraph about that scene, and he said that he was bawling uncontrollably in the in the theater when it happened. So I which I found very moving, and so it's interesting to hear again someone. This is a young guy in Nigeria. Watching it in the theater, and hearing you reacting to the scene in a similar manner is very interesting. But also a lot of the stuff that he says there are things that the electrician that he's sort of partly based on has said in conversations Chuko has had with him, and that specific line of, you know, how do you know what to do, what you're doing, and he's just like, I just understand, is a question that Chuko I know has put the electrician we call Sati back home, and he said that to him once, and that stuck in the screenplay.
This is an extremely intentional film every step of the way. I love that the city of Lagos was its own gorgeous and stunning character, and that's largely, you know, due to how this film was shot, the long shot and the long takes. What influenced that decision?
I think a number of factors. I think firstly, Chuko had written all the locations in the film, and Lagos was always present, even in the script. So we were going to have to tackle Lagos in some way, shape, or form. The work of Ho Xiao Fen and Edward Yang definitely played a part in that. You know, the way that that Taipei sort of shines in their films, and Edward Yang's Taipei story in particular is what I'm thinking of. So that sort of helped influence how we approach the architecture, the visual architecture of the film. But then in parts, it's also sort of like just the fact that you can't really control Lagos. You know, we definitely put extras in there. We definitely sort of like made certain things happen and rehearsed and planned. But you know, a big part of the strategy was just inserting ourselves into the rhythms of Lagos and letting it do what it's going to do to our scenes, and you know, being open to doing that dance, particularly in the market scenes and the really sort of busy locations. Yeah, that was a big part of how we approached it.
And how was it? Because it's such a busy city, how was it sort of controlling the elements outside of, you know, what you were shooting and where you were shooting? I think I read in the production notes that it was a communal endeavor. Can you talk a bit about that, Chuko and Arie?
Yeah, the neighborhood in which the apartments are they're located, it was a place that I would visit often, and I actually, to put pressure on myself to get going and make the film, I rented 2 apartments there. In Nigeria, when you rent an apartment, you normally rent for 2 years, so it's 24 months that, you know, you don't do like month to month. But I, you know, negotiated, we got it down to 18 months. So, and again, rent is different. I think I was paying $10 a month for the 2 of them, and it was. You know, I kept on showing up and visiting, and, you know, getting to know the neighbors and the people, and, you know, eventually it was like, are you making this film? And I was like, yeah, you know. Then after like 6 months, they're like, are you sure you're making this film? Because you've been coming here. And I'm like, no, we're gonna make the film. We're gonna make the film. And then eventually we did show up with a crew and with all these people, and the people in the neighborhood were just incredibly welcoming, and they were all conscripted in some form or another. Or rather, a number of them were conscripted in some form or another. If it was to do the usual thing of blocking off streets and helping us move cars, and, you know, like, whose car is this? Oh, that's so and so. He lives upstairs. It's a Sunday. Okay, well, let me go get him, and, yeah, move the car, and all this sort of stuff was going on. And at one point, we needed curtains made, and there was a woman that made curtains. So it was that sort of thing, and there were all these people wishing the film well in their hearts and minds. And I think when you're in a city like Lagos, which is usually very hostile on the ground, you know, you pull out camera, it's normally yelling and what are you doing and what's that happening, for a number of reasons. But to be able to be somewhere and to feel like you belong, everyone's just walking around up and down freely, and, you know, everyone was very familiar about it. So that's why that's why I mentioned it being very much a communal effort, because they really did welcome us in there and made the job easy. We were there for about 2 weeks or so, and then some of the other locations were owned by individuals that lived there. So like the hair salon, the law firm, all these places were less than 3 minutes away from the central hub of their neighborhood. Yeah.
Arie, anything you want to add to that?
No. I mean that's it really. Yeah, a lot of planning and a lot of discussion, a lot of collaboration.
Yeah, it comes across as a true labor of love. All right, just to begin wrapping up, because I know you guys are busy. Two last questions. How was it working together? I mean, I know that you guys have done shorts before, I think, right? But how was it as brothers, twin brothers, working on this feature film together? Because I'm visualizing my sister and I working on a creative project together. It's going to be bloody. So, so how was it for you guys, especially in terms of editing? How did you decide what to cut? I mean, yeah, Chuko.
I think I'll speak to editing, and then Arie can speak to shooting.
Okay.
Editing was really the first place in which it was very contentious, because obviously I'd been living with it in a certain way for a very long time, and Arie hadn't. But more than that, we also have different philosophies when it comes to editing. Arie's very much someone that believes in rewriting the film when you edit. I'm very much a believer in, like, this is how it is. That's it, warts and all. So we were fortunate enough to have a brilliant editor, uh, actually edit the film, chap called Stephen Lee, and we very much worked in a quasi-democratic process whereby when we came to Stephen was the deciding vote. So he was the swing vote in contentious moments. But I think really I can only think to about 3 or 4 scenes in which it was really quite heated. But in general, we had an editor basically. I don't know how the Coens edit their films together. If we were editing it ourselves, I don't know. That would be a different story. But we had an editor who fully understood the vision and what we're doing and the language of the film, and so he could speak to, okay, I understand this is how you're thinking about it, Chuko. I understand this is how you're thinking about it, Arie. But I'm the editor. This is the rhythm of it, and this is what it should be. Which I would often say, "I told you so." But yeah, that's that. But yeah, editing was the only time where I could really think of it being quite contentious.
And Arie, for you, shooting?
Yeah, production and all. Well, we had actually edited a film together before, Goose. But I think for me, I was always very respectful of the fact that Chuko had written this thing, and it's something that was in his head, and I was constantly just trying to be of service to the script and some of the ideas that he had and was married to. And then every once in a while, I would just sort of I'd try and inject something that I felt was different or would give it some life. And whether it's dolly shots, Chuko doesn't like dolly shots, or whatever it might be, just moving outside of just what was sort of in his head for a very long time. But in short, the actual production was very easy. I think in the first sort of like week, finding out how to collaborate, mainly actually with the other crew, and to make sure that we're sort of like constantly in sync, was the only real challenge, I think. And that was just sort of like the first week. But otherwise, we could be in 2 places at once. And it made directing way easier than it would have been if we'd been doing it on our own, I think.
That's right. One last thing that stood out to me is the music. Where can I get this playlist? Is it available? Where, I mean, like, the music was also its own character. So kudos to Akin for making that happen. But yeah, I'm hoping at some point a playlist will pop up on your Instagrams or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no.
Music is all Arie.
Yeah, well, this is another thing that Chuko has an aversion to: music.
What? What?
Yeah,
I'm just not a musical person.
What does that mean, Chuko? Explain yourself.
You see what I have to deal with.
Oh my God.
Some of the stuff I had to deal with in the edit.
I love listening to it and dancing to it, but I never go seeking. I don't look for it. I don't seek it. and
Got
it's
it.
just people, when it comes to me, it'll come to me. But I can go weeks without listening to music.
What?
My favorite song is Silence.
I do hope that the music will become available somewhere. I mean, yeah, I don't know, we'll find some way of, I don't know, putting it on Spotify or something. I don't know, but you know, a lot of the music was very heavily inspired by the high life from Eastern Nigeria in the 70s, which was post the Civil War, which had this really strange melancholic kind of like feel to it. Well, it was a melancholy to the celebration of coming out of the war, that is just so beautifully captured in the music. Both licensed tracks, which appear at each chapter of the film, and the song at the end called "Happy Survival," which is ironic phrase that people used to say to each other, greeting at the end of the war when they came across each other. Um, all of those rhythms and sounds were inspiration for Akin to make something that was original and something that was a bit more contemporary and infused sort of like electronic kind of notes to, I think, you know, speak to modern Lagos and how that's and how, I don't know, and how we move now, I suppose. But always, but still remembering a lot of the lyrics from those songs, which resonate thematically in the movie.
Definitely. So this film, it's out now. It actually premiered on July 23rd, and it was expanded to more theaters, August 1st. That's a great sign. I think this film is written and shot beautifully. I cannot wait to see what else you create together. I think the world needs more of you, more of your creative energy. And thank you so much for talking with blackfilm.com. And I hope to have this conversation again for a different film, for a different project in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Eyimofe is still in theaters, and it will be till the end of August. So, you know, everyone look out for it if you can, and let us know what you think.
Absolutely. Yeah, a bunch of my friends and I. It's actually showing close to where I live now in Maryland. So a bunch of my friends and I are going to watch it.
Oh, great.
I corralled the whole crew. Like, let's go sit down and watch it. And let's talk about it over dinner and drinks. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you. Bye.
Take care.